Hey, fellow Africans. Guess what, guys? I have no fear. I have walked with lions. And I did. I walked with lions, just over a year ago in Victoria Falls, and it was amazing. What a great thrill. And it's my last trip to Africa, so I'm very sad to see it go, because the spiritual connection I have with my birthplace is amazing. I just love it. And unfortunately, like a lot of you now, I've moved to a different part of the world, and my recommendation, as I've said before, to any whites still in that country, that they consider their future, because you're not wanted there. Now, I want to specifically address today some very useful internet links for South Africans who are considering moving to Australia. And I'll give you some reasons and places to consider regarding the move. If you look at the links below, you'll see the first one is called Sabona, and in there you will find probably about a dozen really useful links, including large South African communities in specific regions, different types of organizations involved with South Africans, and you'll see how huge your community here is. And those groups include groups like in Perth, where they get together and they talk in Afrikaans, just like you did in South Africa. There are barbecues. Perth is very, very similar, climate-wise, to South Africa. So it's a very, very popular initial destination for South Africans. Now, there are several major population areas in Australia. They're like Perth, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide. I'm leaving Darwin off the scale and Tasmania off the scale because they really don't fit in with the South African community. But let's look at the others. Most South Africans, when they first come to Australia, they settle in a place called Perth, which is on the west coast of Australia, and it's closest to South Africa. It's just across the Indian Ocean. It's only about a 13-hour flight, but hell, it's just across the Indian Ocean. Now, the reason most South Africans first settle in Perth is because the climate is so similar, but also because there is a very, very large South African community in Perth. And not only that, but Perth is traditionally a very big mining and resource centre. So if you're in the mining industry or have expertise related to mining, Perth could be the first place you want to look at. Now, when I came to Australia, I first landed in Perth, and the thing that struck me first when I arrived in Australia was that I was driving from the airport back to the city, and I saw these workmen on the side of the road. You know, they were digging a channel or something like that. And they were all white. And I said, what? What the hell is this? What's this going on? Because in South Africa, that would never have happened. You would have just had, obviously, black people doing that sort of work. Maybe it's changed now, but that's just an initial impression I got over 30 years ago when I first came here. Now, the second major centre for South Africans is a city called Brisbane. Oh, I should mention that in Perth, there's a huge farming community as well. So you can quite easily, if you're a farmer, look at Perth as an option. It's much drier out there, but the farmers there do very well. Lots of sheep and goats and cattle and whatever. But getting to the second major South African community, it's in Brisbane. Now, what happened to me was I spent a few years in Perth. I hated the flies, because Perth is known for its flies, and I hated the sand, because Perth is basically built on sand. And one of the long-term problems about Perth is that its water is going brackish. It hasn't got. It's got lots of clean water at the moment, but because it's dry, the water table is falling and it's becoming a bit more salty, and that's an issue they've got to sort out. But they've got a beautiful island there called Rottnest. Now, and you can read up about Rottnest if you Google it. Getting back to Brisbane. Okay, I live in Brisbane now. I've been in Brisbane now for a good 20 years, over 20 years. Love it here. The climate is very similar to Durban. Very warm. We never get frost here. We never get snow here. It's the middle of winter. Well, it's getting close to the middle of winter right now, as you guys know, in South Africa. And today it's probably 85 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 23, 24 degrees Celsius. And this is our autumn. Our winters hardly exist. We do have a few cold days, but beautiful weather here. Now, Brisbane has a huge farming community. If you look down below, you'll see the major Brisbane city community is actually in a suburb called Kenmore, which is just west of the city, and it's very upmarket. A lot of the South Africans have acreage, and they have their own horses on the acreage, and beautiful, beautiful area around Kenmore. But the South African farmers tend to be out further west in areas like Toowoomba, and there they grow crops, they have cattle, whatever they want to do, it's all there. So another very good area for farmers is Queensland, where Brisbane is. The third most popular area for South Africans is in Sydney. Now, Sydney is very different to Perth and Brisbane, because Sydney tends to be more a business area. So if you've got a really good business you can bring to Australia, Sydney's your spot. And Bondi Beach to the east of the city, which is over Sydney Harbour, or going north towards the Manly area, or Pennington. Those are the sort of areas that a lot of South Africans congregate in Sydney, and they're all doing very, very well. The only problem with Sydney is that the housing prices are very high. You're going to be paying up above $1 million Australian for a home, whereas here in Brisbane you pay about half of that. And I got to tell you, Brisbane has amazing climate. We got the Gold Coast here. Sydney has Bondi Beach, but hey, nothing beats the Gold Coast. I know I'm biased. I'm a Queenslander. I'm an African, but I'm a friggin' Queenslander too, okay? Just get over it. Now, the next area to consider, and we're moving slightly lower on the list now, is Melbourne. Melbourne is, you've got the opportunity to farm there, but most South Africans who go to Melbourne are involved in the financial industry, because Melbourne tends to be the finance capital of Australia. So if you're in the finance industry, or you like investments and stuff like that, and it's also very multicultural. So Melbourne tends to be like the California of Australia, like Los Angeles, which is incredibly multicultural. Not saying that the rest of Australia isn't, but Melbourne in particular is incredibly multicultural. But it is the financial capital of Australia, so finances, investment, that's probably the best place for you to look at. And finally, we look at Adelaide. Now, Adelaide is in South Australia. Oh, by the way, Melbourne is in Victoria. Okay, and I should also say that Sydney is in New South Wales. They're all on the east coast, so they're below Queensland. Sydney is just south of, or in New South Wales, just south of Queensland, and then Victoria is like on the bottom corner on the east coast. But Adelaide in South Australia, they have a huge wine area in the Adelaide Hills. So if you're in the wine industry, perfect place for you to consider. Huge wine fields there. A lot of South Africans living there. I think there are about 6,000 at the moment in Adelaide. The only problem I have with Adelaide, personally, is that the temperatures in summer can be excessive, and I mean excessive. I've seen Adelaide getting 40 degrees Celsius plus for a week without a break. And that doesn't happen every year, but wow, it's one hell of a hot place. But a lot of farming there, so do consider that. Now, you'll also see in my links below where I talk about the Australian government page on South Africa, which you should have a look at. And also I have down below employment opportunities. And if you look at that page, you'll see where there are various industries where skills are required in Australia. And if you have one of those skills and you can get the points, you just have to get a sponsor, a work sponsor, and you're in. It's that easy. It really is. I never used a particular outside contractor to get me in. I just dealt directly with a business in Australia who wanted me. They sent a letter saying, hey, we want this guy. And I then went to the embassy direct, the Australian embassy direct, and they filled in all the forms and looked at the sponsor, approved it, and I was gone. So you don't have to spend big bucks to actually get out of South Africa. And finally, just bringing things home in a real way, there are a lot of shops in Australia, and some of them are online, and I've actually given a link to one below, which actually carry traditional South African products, including things like Ouma Rusks. And who doesn't love dumping an Ouma Rusk in their coffee and, just enjoying it? But they have it all here. Huge South African community. Obviously Google and look for your own links, but I think you might find the links that I've actually given you here of use. Anyway, guys, look, all the best. My heart goes out to you. I know this is a really concerning time for you, but hey, I miss Africa too, but oh my God, I just think that things are not going to get better there. Okay, cheers guys.